So it's a beautiful day in Florida. Those of you who watch the videos regularly know how much I love my beautiful days in Florida, but it is a beautiful one. It's a solid 70 degrees. It's a little windy, which kind of sucks for filming, sorry, but it's nice to have a breeze. So we're getting all the cars ready for the drift event. I'm trying to bring both the Z and my LS Miata. Ben's got his, oh, he already finished it. So Ben's got his turbo Miata. He just did an alignment on. I need to finalize the alignment on this. I need to mount tires for this and just nut and bolt it, make sure it's not broken anywhere. So as I was doing all of this, you know, I was thinking about it, and I get the question a lot of what drift car should I buy? What is the best drift car? What should I get as my first drift car? What should I get as a daily drift car? What should I get to build as a drift car? And honestly, for the most part, the answers are all the same. So the answer is 350Z. Bet you didn't see that one coming, huh? So the other part of that question that I get a lot is why 350Zs? Why do you guys like 350Zs so much? I think they're ugly. I think they're boring. I think they're lame. Regardless of what your personal opinion is on it from an emotional standpoint, that's not the point here. That's not the reason why I think the 350Z is the best drift car you can get. And not only in the sense that we drive them, which is a simple seat time car kind of sense, seat time over mods kind of deal, but also in a heavily modified sense. We'll get into that as well. But I don't particularly care for the way they look. I don't think the 350Zs are like some amazing looking car. I don't particularly care for working on them that much. You know, I don't really, I'm not like, man, this is a dope car. I like it because it's cool in the way it looks. As you can tell, looks are pretty low on my priority list. Pretty low on the list. They really are, because this is a car to do one thing, and that is drift, and drift well and drift reliably. So let's talk about that first. The first aspect of why a 350Z is really like the best drift car, in my opinion. This is all my opinion, personal experience. I've had a lot of different cars. I've had E36s, 240s, Miatas, C5 Corvette. I mean, I've had pretty much all ends of the spectrum, and to me, the Z, from every standpoint, makes the most sense. So let's talk first about the way we have our cars set up. We'll go over kind of like the mods that this car has and why, but the goal of this car is to be a reliable car that you can go do lap after lap after lap after lap in. It's not going to overheat, it's not going to break, you're not going to have to open the hood, you're just going to go drive. Drive and drive and drive. And again, this is for people who want to drive. This video, as the 350Z being the best drift car, this is relating to people who just want to go drive. You're getting into drifting because you like sliding and drifting and tandeming, and that's what you want to do. If you're getting into it because the rolling car show aspect and you want a cool looking car and all that, that's going to be all user preference. It's going to be all your personal opinion, what you like. You probably don't like 350Z, so it's not going to be the best drift car for you. But if you just want to drive, that's what we're talking about. This is why it is the best drift car for you. So let's go over the mod list of this thing. Nothing too crazy. So I guess let's pop the hood first. So a lot of people think, they'll ask me if this is an HR car. My fender's kind of hitting. It's kind of annoying. Might need to fix that. So a lot of people think this is an HR car. It's not. It is a plain old DE car. So it's a VQ35 DE, the first motor of these. This is an 05. So it's kind of like the second best trans. 06 is when they finally fixed all the issues with the trans. This year, I think it still had a synchro issue with one of the synchros. But all in all, very minimal mods to the engine. We have an intake plenum spacer, which makes good power on these engines. It has some lightweight pulleys, which, I mean, I don't know if that really helps anything at all. They came on the car. Most of these mods came on the car when I bought it. Supposedly, my car has a rev-up lower intake. I can't confirm that. I have no idea. But basically, intake plenum spacer, stock airbox. Does it have a K&N filter in it? I think it has a K&N filter. It feels like a K&N filter. What else? I have a catch can. Very important with these cars. They do consume oil, which is not a big deal as long as you check the oil frequently. I think these engines get a bad rap because you see a lot of them blown up, but I think the reason they blow up is because people that own them don't know about the oil consumption issues, or don't think it's a problem, or just don't check it. And then they run them low on oil and they rod knock them. You check the oil. I mean, in my experience, you're going to be fine. I've had this car for probably about a year now, and I drove it on the road once at the tail of the Dragon. Other than that, and that was, I think, probably 20 miles total. Other than that, it's only driven on and off the trailer and at the track. Only drifted, and I've put over 200 miles on it of just drifting 200 miles. So I've driven this car a lot, and it's been fine, but I check the oil at least twice an event. You know, I check it before I go drive, I check it about halfway through just to make sure it's solid. And the old DE, I mean, she's holding in strong. I mean, occasionally it smokes really bad if I overfill it and then it goes away. Other than that, she's good. The only issues I've had with this car, I shouldn't say all this stuff. I'm gonna have real issues. The electric throttle body, I've had weird issues with that. It just randomly stopped working and go into limp mode, and the throttle basically did nothing because it's electric pedal, electric throttle body. And for me, it ended up being the ground wire for my fans got disconnected, and that tripped it. But that is the one major pitfall, in my opinion, with these cars, is that they are new enough to where they do have a lot of electronics, and some of the stuff is difficult to diagnose. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. Let's get back to the point. So basic bolt-ons: plenum spacer, K&N drop-in filter, lightweight pulleys, stock manifolds, just test pipes, full exhaust with a muffler, and a tune for Martin. The tune is a big part because it increases the red line by 1,000 RPM, and that doesn't really seem to matter if you just think about it arbitrarily. But when you're drifting, a lot of times you might be stuck between a certain gear, so you might be a little too fast for second, so you're just on rev limiter, you don't have the wheel speed, and then if you go to third, the car doesn't have enough power because it's not going fast enough. And that 1,000 RPM is a lot of times the difference between being stuck between gears and being good in the gear you have. So tune is very important. Basically, those mods are really solid. They make good power, they work well, they improve reliability a little bit. So basically, intake exhaust tune, you could call it. Now, more important mods, in my opinion, reliability mods. So we've got some upgraded hoses, we have stock fans, but we have some sort of aftermarket eBay aluminum radiator that works great. Ignite. What does that say? I don't know what brand this is. Some sort of eBay aluminum radiator. I would suggest Mishimoto. That's what I like. That's what I would have put in this car if I put one in, but I bought the car with this. Mishimoto oil cooler, very important. They make a drop-in kit for these with the thermostat and everything. Really, really important to have an oil cooler on these cars. They're a low-capacity engine. I think they're around 4 quarts. And the oil gets hot. Even with oil coolers, if we're really hot lapping, which you get to do in these cars because they're reliable, we will cook the oil. Without oil coolers, I don't even want to know what the oil temps would be at. So oil cooler, very important. Should be like one of the #1 mods you do to this car. Got a bash bar. That's aesthetics. Angle kit. Hold on, we'll get to that because I got to turn the wheel. And I got to turn the camera off to move my hand. In the rear back here, I have all ISR arms. These arms are really solid. They're super cheap, totally worth it. So I've got all ISR arms. You really only need the toe and camber arm. I have the traction arms, but lengthening them on this car doesn't really do anything. Kind of pointless, other than that you get a spherical joint. And then I have Hotchkiss sway bars front and rear. They clear big angle and they're adjustable and they're not that expensive. So that, and then I have solid subframe bushings and then poly diff bushings. Oh, as well as another important mod. I should have put this thing on the lift. Oh, I guess I could have just gone over here. Look at how much more room there is over here. Bell Raceworks diff brace. So the factory diff is only held in by that one bolt at the back. The studs like to break and then the diff falls out. So the Bell Raceworks gives you another bolt, mounts to the case, basically gives you a separate mounting point. It's a good jack point. It's a good toe strap point. Totally worth it. Definitely highly suggest it. Other than that, that's all that's done to the rear suspension, welded diff. So these cars are not the type of cars where you'd want to run the factory limited slip. Miata, for example, factory torsion diffs that come in them are really good. My Corvette, factory clutch type LSD, really nice. For some reason with most Nissans, there are some clutch type ones, but for the most part, they're all viscous, and pretty much any viscous LSD I've ever used, J30, 350Z, any viscous LSD sucks. Maybe brand new, they're all right. People say you can shim them and it helps. I just go welded. And you can weld the LSDs on here. Marco has a video, my buddy Marco has a video on how to do that. I have a PBM angle kit and a Hotchkiss sway bar up here as well. Let me turn the wheel for you. I need to fix that. That's annoying. Oh, come on, bud. Don't do, oh, the clutch. I'm an idiot. That all she wrote? That's good enough to show you. I mean, that's a lot of lock, honestly. It's actually more than I realized this car had. So that is the amount of angle that you get with the PBM kit. A lot of people, there's some people who've ran the PBM kit and had issues with it breaking. Knock on wood, I've only broken the lower Heim joint, and that was from running into Adam. Okay, so quick little update. When this video was filmed was before I went drifting with Cletus. A lot of you already know what happened. If you don't know what happened, here is a clip. So basically, completely jinxed myself when I said that I hadn't broken my PBM angle kit because both control arms snapped out of the blue. We didn't do anything wrong. Cletus wasn't driving any more aggressive than I drive, and they just decided to snap. Both of them. Both of them. So, pretty much any tubular steel arm on a track car seems to be a bad call. The problem is, for the longest time, you didn't really have any other options. It was either PBM, which is kind of a more simple angle kit, keeps the wheels inside the fenders, doesn't make your steering super weird and twitchy, drives relatively normal, but you get a solid 55 degrees, or WiseFab, which is over $2,000, pokes your wheels past your fenders, the steering's a lot different, like the car drives different and all that stuff. So basically, if you didn't want to spend WiseFab money and have like a WiseFab style angle kit, your only other option was PBM, which is probably going to break. So fortunately, a company named FDF Fab, they're up in Canada, built in Canada, they came out with a kit that's similar to PBM. It's not like WiseFab where it sticks everything out crazy far and all that stuff, but it's built out of laser cut steel like the WiseFab, so it's super strong. You don't have to worry about it breaking. Very, very well built, but also while being cheaper than PBM and much stronger than PBM. So I'm gonna be switching to their kit. I'm actually gonna use their Mega Kit, which is similar to WiseFab. It's like custom knuckle and roll center correction and track width and crazy angle. The only reason I'm doing that is because this car is a dedicated track car. Matt and Adam have WiseFab, so the car will drive more similarly to theirs with a kit that's basically similar to WiseFab. So, and the kit is much more affordable than WiseFab. So anyway, we're gonna be doing an install and testing and stuff on that later. Probably have a video of the install up in about a week, and I'll have them bring the regular kit so I can show you guys that too. But definitely is amazing to finally have an option that's not crazy angle, but not gonna break like PBM, because that was the big void in the market for a long time. So anyway, just wanted to give you guys an update because you're probably watching this video like, wait, didn't these control arms break? They did. So anyway, back to the video. But I've had relatively good luck. And again, Hotchkiss sway bar clears with the PBM angle, which is awesome. Makes the car drive really well. BC DS coilovers. So coilovers are definitely a big mod on these two. If you notice the theme here, very minimal engine mods, mostly cooling, suspension. Those are pretty much the biggest things. So the BC Racing DS coilovers are amazing. I have the true coilovers out with a 4K rear spring rate, 10K front, long stroke shocks. If you guys want a setup like this is as low as the car goes in the rear, so don't call and order this setup and then complain about the ride height. It is not meant to go low. You can run the default shock and go a lot lower, but these are long stroke front and rear. You can jump speed bumps with this setup and you don't even notice it, and it makes a good amount of rear grip and handles really well with the sway bars. But anyway, if you guys want this particular setup, you can just call BC, tell them you want like Taylor's 350Z spec, and they can spec you out this exact kit. They have all the info on it because I spec'd it out myself. I came up with it. So anyway, suspension, last thing I want to cover. Cars, this is one of the most important mods in my opinion to any car. That's kind of the theme with this car, right? Everything that's been done to this car is what I feel is most important in a drift car. You don't really need that much power. You just need all this other stuff. So, nice, comfortable seat that fits you well. Very important. Nice steering wheel. Good position. Experiment with positions. How far back you want it, how far forward you want it. Experiment with positions. You already did there. Hydro handbrake. Everyone talks about handbrakes are lame, blah, blah, blah. If you want a tandem, you want to go wheel to wheel, you got to have a good handbrake. You got to have a good handbrake. I can do laps all day without using the handbrake. When I lead most of the time, I might use it on initiation and that's it. But when you're tandeming, and even in tandeming a lot of times, if I'm in the zone, I won't use it there either. I'll just left foot brake behind people. But it's a safety net. If you're coming up on somebody and they slow down, your options are either plow them or pull the handbrake. You want to have a handbrake there. So that's another benefit to the Z. There's huge aftermarket. That's why the rear arms are cheap. You know, there's a lot of info on them. And then like the dual caliper setups are super cheap. You're on stock calipers, freaking works great. The whole setup is really affordable. So there's no reason not to go dual caliper on these. For those of you who don't know, dual caliper is basically you have your own brake caliper in the rear for the handbrake. So the handbrake is its own system. Otherwise, you're teeing into the factory brake system and it does weird things if you handbrake and foot brake at the same time. And I highly suggest just go dual caliper. If you have a car like my Vet, there was no option for that, and it was really difficult to try to fit another caliper in there. That's fine, run inline. These cars though, there's no reason not to. The kits, there's so many people with kits, they become super competitively priced, very worth doing. So, okay, that was a little longer winded than I intended, but that is basically the setup of this car. Very similar to my friend Adam and Matt's cars. They both have WiseFab. But other than that, you know, our cars are all really similar. And we all drive a ton. We drive so much. I have driven more in this car in a year and a half or so than I probably have in every other car I've owned combined. If that doesn't blow your mind. Like, the car, I hate saying this stuff because there's wood over here somewhere. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. The car has been incredibly reliable. To me, that is the one reason, one area, the one avenue where the 350Z or G35 really shines. You do suspension, comfort, and a couple engine mods, and you've got yourself a super reliable car that you can go beat to death as much as you want. Drive, and drive. I mean, who doesn't like driving? I think that's what blows my mind the most is people who'd rather work on their car than drive. I would rather drive than work on my car all day. I mean, don't get me wrong, I had fun building my LS Miata, and you know, I kind of built that car to be reliable too, but probably won't be as reliable as this thing. But you know, those cars are fun, but being able to just go drive and just bump doors with your friends. I mean, look at how many tire marks are on my door. Both sides. Tire mark, tire mark, tire mark, tire mark. You look at Matt's car, it's the same way. You look at Adam's car, it's the same way. It's a special thing, man. I love this car for the fact that it has given me so much seat time. Okay, so enough about my, so much seat time in this car. So much seat time. I literally made a tire sprayer. So I've got a 5-quart tank with an electric pump. It's like a universal windshield washer tank. I have a button up there, that little red button. I press it, I've got windshield washer nozzles in here, sealed off so smoke doesn't get in the cabin. I've got 2 here, 2 up there, and they spray my tires down to cool them down, because since the car doesn't ever heat, sometimes we'll do lap after lap after lap after lap. The last time I drove this car, it was a little wet, so the tires lasted forever, but me and Adam drove, virtually nobody else at the track, me and him driving, almost no wait time between runs. We drove for 1 hour and 15 minutes without stopping. 1 hour and 15 minutes without getting out of the cars, without changing tires, without letting the cars cool down, I mean, literally just finish the run, drive over, get ready, like drive over to the start of the track and go do the next run. So anyway, I'm very passionate about not just the Z in this aspect, but people getting into drifting having a car like this, a simple car. You know, people will get into drifting and want to build like 500 horsepower turbo car, and then the car breaks every event, and I see them get frustrated and I see them get bummed, and I don't blame them. I've been there, and it sucks. And then you don't drive, and then you just hate it, and you just hate drifting, and you hate cars because every time you try to drive your car, it's broken. And I want to see more people get into it like this and just go drive and have fun. And then once you get to the point where you're slaying run indoors and whatever, if you want to go try to compete after you got thousands of laps of seat time, then build yourself a crazy car, keep this car, keep practicing, keep driving. Okay, I said I was going to stop talking about this aspect like 5 times. So what we're going to talk about now is the building it aspect. So short of building a complete tube frame, tube chassis setup, so like completely rebuilding the frame of the car, the Z also makes a ton of sense as like a fully built Pro-Am car. Now I'll explain why. There are better cars, chassis and suspension wise, as far as, you know, better weight, better grip, maybe better, you know, engine bay sizing, maybe better angle kits, suspension geometry, things like that. But the Z has decent geometry, tons of angle kit options, so you're good there. It is a little on the heavier side. If you're doing pro, it's got to be over, I think, 2,900 pounds anyway. The biggest thing here is cost. That's what we're talking about, is like the cost of doing a swap in a Z is pretty much cheaper than any other drift platform you can get. The reason for that is because the 350Z already has the transmission that most people use in swaps. It already has the diff that most people use in swaps. It already has the axles that most people use in swaps. When people swap big motors into 240s to run Pro-Am and stuff, a lot of them use a CD09 350Z trans, at least 350Z axles. Sometimes they have to upgrade to a 350Z diff. So your driveline from the trans back is already good to go. It's already stout. It's already set up for power. It's already ready. Because of that, you want to swap an LS in this, you want to swap a JZ in this, pull the motor out, they make adapter plates that bolt it to the transmission, and you don't have to do anything from the transmission back. Normally, when you do a swap, you got to do a different trans, you got to make it fit in the trans tunnel, you got to do a trans mount, you got to do a drive shaft, your diff might be too weak, you might have to upgrade the diff. I mean, that's what I had to do on this car. This car has a 350Z trans. It's an LS in a Miata, has a 350Z trans, has a 488 diff. I mean, I had to change the entire driveline. This car, you would pull the motor out, put the other motor in, it adapts to your transmission, you're good to go. And you can do that with a JZ or an LS. So, I mean, to me, that is huge. That is huge. It cuts down a ton on time, cuts down a ton on fabrication need. You know, if you're like me and you like welding and you can TIG weld and fabricate, you know, that stuff's not quite as big of a deal, right? But if you don't know how to fabricate and you have to pay someone to fabricate, that's a lot of the cost. If you have to wait for a swap kit to come out, swap kit's way more expensive when it's got to be trans mount, drive shaft, all these other things. And I think even like, I know at least for the V8, like Injuku makes a swap kit, and I'm pretty sure it goes to like the factory catback Z exhaust. So if you built a car like this and then wanted to put a V8 in it, you already had a nice exhaust, you already had nice suspension, you're already ready to go. Like, it's going to be super affordable to do so. And really the theme and what I've learned is that the closer you can keep a car to stock, the more reliable it is. When you have a car like that where everything's changed, I mean, it's got a freaking dry sump. Like, it's got all this crazy stuff in it. Nothing is stock anymore. This car, you need a trans mount, you can just order a trans mount for a 350Z. You need a diff bushing, you need a diff brace, you need an axle. You go to the store and you buy a 350Z axle, no problem. So, I mean, to me, that is the reason why the 350Z is the best drift car for the money for either a simple seat time car like this or an affordable Pro-Am build. And you may say, well, why didn't you use a Z as your Pro-Am build? Well, for one, I started the Miata build before I knew that, before I had a Z, and before I had learned as much about them, and before I knew how really dialed they were, before some of these swap kits came out and all that stuff. Also, you know, my concept with the Miata, not everyone's cup of tea. Cars hard to drive. These cars are twitchy, they're difficult to drive. It's a little bit advantageous in tandem, but they are difficult. Especially if you're used to like a Z or something. Like, I'm used to driving that, and I just did my first few drifts in this car, and it was weird because I'm so used to that. But these cars make sense because they're lightweight. You can run small tires and they're still fast. The suspension makes good mechanical grip. If you get adjustable upper arms, you can dial in your camber without messing with your toe or anything, which is amazing. Because you'll go from one track to another and your tire wheel will be off and you'll have to adjust your camber. And with this car, you've got to do camber toe, and then it's a little off again, then you adjust your camber, and then you adjust your toe. That car, I can just pull the camber out, done. So, I don't know. I'm getting off topic here. Basically, all cars have their advantages and disadvantages. But if you look at it from a pure logic standpoint, you can't beat the Z in terms of either of those options. I mean, if you want to do some out of the box swap, you know, some weird something, I don't know, I can't think of, you know, you want to do like a Ford bar swap or something, then it really, the benefits are negated. But if you want to do an LS or a JZ car, you want to make 500 horsepower, I don't think you could swap any other car for cheaper than a Z. And right now, they're still cheap. You can buy a running, driving 6-speed car like this for like $3 grand. I mean, obviously, you're probably gonna have to do the mods, and you know that does add up a little bit, but you can be into a really, really solid car with good suspension setup, seat, steering wheel, handbrake, everything ready to go for probably $5 grand to $6 grand. And you can do that over time. You don't need a PVM angle kit. That's the other thing. If you have all stock, GK Tech makes a bolt-on angle kit setup for like $200, and it gives you like 45 or 50 degrees of angle. Like, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. No other car can you get that much angle by doing basically nothing. Like, it's amazing. So yeah, I mean, again, it's not everyone's cup of tea. A lot of people like to be different. They like to try different stuff, and I totally understand that. But it just depends on what you're doing. I have this car, so my Miata is different, and that's okay, because like, when I have issues with it and I'm sorting them out, it's okay, you know, because I have this to drive still. I can still go drive. If you have a car where you've got a ton of aftermarket support, it's easy to find parts for. Tons of people drive them. Oh, that's lame. Well, that means when you're at the track and you break an axle like I did, your buddy has a spare axle. That means when you want to buy rear arms, they're not $200, $300 for a pair of arms. They're like $100-something bucks, because so many companies make them, and it's a competitive market. When you get into these oddball cars, everything is expensive because there's not that many people making stuff for them. The Vet is the only other exception, because the factory suspension, you don't need to do arms to get your alignment dialed in on a Vet. You don't need to weld the diff. You don't really need to upgrade much on a Vet to get good angle, have all the adjustment you need, have a good diff. I mean, a Vet's really, if C5 Vets come down a little bit more in price, they might make a better simple seat time car. The problem the Vets have is just they're even harder to work on, and there's still not that much aftermarket for them, so you're still kind of shooting in the dark with if you can get stuff or not. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, that is why I think a 350Z is the best drift car you can buy. At least right now. It may change. These things may be as expensive as 240s in a year or two, because we're going to destroy them all. Like, I don't know. But right now, these are so cheap. Like, you just cannot beat them. I mean, you just can't beat them for the price. So that is my spiel. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think would be a better all-around drift car. Let me know if you have any other reasons why this is a great all-around drift car, or why it's a bad all-around drift car. And again, looks, opinions on them, as far as like, I don't like the way they look, I don't like this about them or that about them, like aesthetically and personally, that's kind of irrelevant to the conversation. What we're talking about, again, is just a car that you want to be able to go drive. Like the video if you found it helpful. Subscribe if you want to see more of this stuff, or more just general shenanigans, doing donuts in the LS Miata, drifting, building cars, etc. And let me know what you guys want to see me cover next. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Goodbye.